Hey, I want to remind you to subscribe and join the Noti gang. That's right, there's nothing more prestigious than joining the Noti gang of Dolphins Today. And I'm going to give you 3 easy steps to do so. First and foremost, you got to subscribe. So hit that subscribe button. And the next part is very important. So listen up. See that little notification bell? Yeah, you got to click that notification bell. And last but certainly not least, select all as your option because you don't want to miss a thing when it comes to Dolphins Today. We got you covered from every single angle. That's why you subscribe and join the Noti gang. Now, let's get into our big board as it relates to the Miami Dolphins and their draft targets because as we know, that NFL draft is quickly approaching, and Chris Grier has a lot to prove because, in my estimation, his only home run pick in the last several years is De'Von Achane, which is a good pick to have, but there's been more swings and misses than there have been home runs. So, Chris Grier, I know you're a big fan of the show. Listen up and listen good. I've got my top 10 Dolphins first-round targets unveiled for our Dolphins Today family. And as of now, the Dolphins are picking 21st in the draft, but there have been some rumblings of potentially trading up, trading back. Chris Grier said nothing's off the table. So let's get into it. My number 10 prospect, and I should have said this is kind of a combination of who I think will be available, best fits, best position of need, and so on and so forth as we work through these. But Brian Thomas Jr. is an intriguing prospect, and I've done a couple of Pro Football Focus mock drafts where they actually simulate who might be taken, and there's been times where Brian Thomas has been available at that number 21 pick. Now, big physical receiver at 6'5" out of LSU, and the 2023 stats speak for themselves. 17 touchdowns, a guy that had 68 receptions, and obviously in a prolific offense led by Jaden Daniels, you know the numbers would be there. But I think he'll be a guy that if he falls to 21 would be so tempting to grab for the Miami Dolphins. Because as I mentioned earlier in the program, the Dolphins have 2 of the best wide receivers in the National Football League in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. But after that, a complete and total fallout. Nobody else for this Miami Dolphins team in the 2023 season had over 300 yards receiving besides Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Those 2 combined for over 60% of the receiving total from a guy, Tua Tagovailoa, that led the NFL in passing yards. So imagine the possibilities if you pair a bona fide third wide receiver with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And it is a little bit of a luxury pick because there are other positions of need. But as I mentioned, this is just throwing it out there. If he's available, it certainly would be very tempting for the Dolphins to grab Brian Thomas Jr. at number 21. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Make the call yourself. Who do you want the Miami Dolphins to draft at 21? And, of course, the Dolphins may, in fact, trade that pick. But wherever they go, let me know who you think the Dolphins should draft. Up next, we shift to the defensive side of the ball with Edgerrin, a.k.a. Johnny Newton, the defensive tackle out of Illinois, reigning Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. Now, close personal friend of mine, huge Illinois fan. I asked him about Johnny Newton, said the guy is a game wrecker. He wreaks havoc on the opposition. He's athletic from the defensive line position. And I would also add this. I like the idea of Johnny Newton in the first round if and only if you miss out on Christian Wilkins and you don't want to pay Christian Wilkins. And based on Chris Grier's comments today, I'm not either closer or further away from believing Christian Wilkins will be a member of the Miami Dolphins in 2024. So having Johnny Newton in the back of your mind from a defensive line prospect certainly makes a lot of sense if you're not able to franchise tag or re-sign Christian Wilkins. But I would, in fact, rather re-sign Christian Wilkins because based on what he means to this team as a vocal leader, you saw it on Hard Knocks, he's the heart and soul of that defense. He brings an edge, he brings a flair, he motivates others, and I just don't think you can ask a rookie in Johnny Newton to be able to do that. So give me Wilkins over Johnny Newton. Now, coming up, we're going to continue breaking down our Dolphins big board. We've got 8 more to go, but I want you to join us for our one-stop shop for all Miami Dolphins everything you could imagine. Our current subscriber goal is 56,000. We're at 55,583 right now, and some quick, simple math will tell you we're 417 away. And of those subscribers, you got to join the Noti gang. Because are you even a subscriber if you don't join the Noti gang? I don't think so. Here are the 3 easy steps. Hit that subscribe button. Done. Next, you hit that bell. Click your notification bell and select all so you don't miss a thing on Dolphins Today. Now, let's continue on the defensive side of the football with Edan Cooper, the linebacker out of Texas A&M, a big 6'3" lengthy product out of the Texas A&M program that really is an appealing prospect because I believe he's a day one starter for this Miami Dolphins team. And when you factor in the fact that Anthony Weaver has said a couple of different times that he's willing to change things up, use multiple style of defenses, something Vic Fangio wasn't able to do. So you add into his disposal so many different athletes, so many different players that can play a multitude of positions and impact the game in a number of different ways. Edgerrin Cooper fits that mold. And in 2023, he had 8 sacks. And this is a guy that can do more than just sack the quarterback. So I like the idea, and you also have to factor in that Jaelan Phillips and Bradley Chubb and possibly Andrew Van Ginkel. We don't know. He's a free agent. Will Andrew Van Ginkel be back? Of course, the injuries with Bradley Chubb and Jaelan Phillips. So Edgerrin Cooper is my number 8 on the Dolphins' top 10 big board. Up next, a little bit of a luxury pick, so don't get too mad at me, but Jatavian Sanders, the tight end from Texas, would be an appealing pick because this is an offense. And I said this a couple of videos ago when we talked about signing a free agent tight end. This is an offense that I believe with tight end production, it doesn't even have to be an elite tight end, but a tight end better than Durham Smythe could do so much for this offense. And you look at the tight end depth chart right now for the Dolphins, Durham Smythe, average at best. Julian Hill, a good run blocker, but does nothing in the passing game. And I don't think Tyler Kraft is going to be back at all for the Miami Dolphins. So simply put, I think the Dolphins need to upgrade at tight end at some point. And even if it's not the first round, you look at the top tight ends on Mel Kiper's big board right now. Obviously, Brock Bowers out of Georgia is going to be number 1. But then there's Jatavian Sanders and potentially available late in the first round. Don't forget about Cade Stover from Ohio State and Theo Johnson from Penn State, 2 Big Ten tight ends that might make some noise. And Jared Wiley, kind of that old school tight end. Saw him play against West Virginia for TCU. Jared Wiley, big, tall, physical guy, not as much speed. And again, that old school tight end feel. Eric All was a guy that started his career at Michigan, got beat out, transferred to Iowa with Cade McNamara, and the two of them were going to revolutionize the Hawkeyes offense. That didn't quite happen, but you get the point. There are some tight ends available that maybe if you don't pick one up in the first round that you could snag later in the draft that I still think would be upgrades from Durham Smythe and Julian Hill. All right, we're working our way through this. My 6th best prospect, and one that we've talked quite a bit about on Dolphins Today. In fact, he was interviewed at the Combine today talking about the Dolphins. We've got some content from the NFL Combine thanks to our boys in Indy. Shout out to them. But Laiatu Latu, the number 6 prospect on my big board because, again, this is a proven defensive player in college, a mature player that's played 3 years for UCLA, led the NCAA in sacks, and can play an outside linebacker position, can play an edge rusher, and regarded as arguably the most dominant pass rusher in this draft class, and projects to be somewhere in a mid-first round, but it's the injury concerns that could push him back to later in the first round in that 20s range where the Dolphins could have a chance at drafting Laiatu Latu. And don't forget, he was also the Lombardi Award winner at UCLA. And again, a mature player that's had plenty of time to develop and somebody that Anthony Weaver could certainly elevate and have an impactful role at the next level, a day one starter and an impact player. That's why he's on my big board at number 6. But we've talked a lot of defense. I know there's a glaring need on the offense, on the offensive line. So let me know what you think down in the comments. What's the Dolphins' biggest position of need? Is it outside linebacker? Is it offensive line? I think as I read through the majority of comments, most people are saying it's the offensive line that the Dolphins need to address. And it just so happens this draft class very deep at the offensive line position. Either way, let your voice be heard. And again, it's kind of the elephant in the room when you look at this Miami Dolphins team, that their offensive line wasn't necessarily bad in particular. It was just depleted by injuries. I mean, take a look from left to right. Teron Armstead missed 7 games. Isaiah Wynn missed 8. Conor Williams, season-ending ACL injury on Monday Night Football against the Tennessee Titans. Robert Hunt missed 8 games. Austin Jackson was the model of consistency, but he still missed a game. And the Dolphins used over 12 different starting offensive line combinations, so you know they need some depth. So let's dive into it. My 5th best prospect, Jackson Powers Johnson. Not just a great name, but seems to be a great prospect as well. Very versatile player, athletic offensive lineman, and has the ability to play both center and guard. Now, let's apply this to the Miami Dolphins. Let's say Conor Williams, free agent center, doesn't return. Ergo de facto, maybe drafting Jackson Powers Johnson is the way to go. I love his athleticism, and probably most importantly, his mom follows me on Twitter, so he's a guy I want to see in the aqua and orange. Shout out to Jackson Powers Johnson's mom. All right, Jackson Powers Johnson, also worth noting, the top-rated center if that's the position that he plays it in the NFL. He could play guard, he could play center. He has the athletic versatility to be able to play both. And I have a hunch that this is who the Dolphins are going to take if he's in fact available at 21. So let's put our hypothetical hats on for a second, go back to school, and grade the pick of Jackson Powers Johnson with the Dolphins' 21st overall pick. If this is the direction they decide to go, what grade do you give that pick? A, B, C, D, or F? And hopefully it's an A, just like the Dolphins' NFLPA report card was straight A's. All right, I think this would be an A pick, maybe even an A+, because it's a better option than paying Conor Williams. And that's nothing against Conor Williams, because he was one of the best rated centers by Pro Football Focus and regarded as the 63rd best free agent. So there's some pros and some cons with Conor Williams. Had some bad snaps early in the season. Of course, had the infamous bad snap against the Kansas City Chiefs in the game against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in Germany. And despite his impactful role and positive Pro Football Focus grading, I don't think he's a guy that you throw the bag at, as the kids say, which means pay a lot of money. But there's also the case that maybe he is, because look at this split between the Dolphins' games with Conor Williams and without. 9 games with, 9 games without. And like I said, football's the ultimate team game, but they were 7-2 with Conor Williams starting at center, 4-5 without him. They scored better than 34 points with him, less than 23 without him. And as a team, they only allowed 8 sacks in 9 games with him, and without him in 9 games, 25 sacks allowed. So some pretty drastic splits. And when you see those numbers, I don't think it's wrong to say, look, pay Conor Williams. The Dolphins need Conor Williams. But I also, from my opinion, think Jackson Powers Johnson would be a suitable replacement for Conor Williams at the center position. Plus, it'd be a rookie contract compared to a high-paying contract to Conor Williams. While we're on the offensive line, let's move to Graham Barton from Duke, the Duke Blue Devils. Yes, not the basketball school. That's right. They're a football school now. Graham Barton is a very high-level prospect that the Dolphins could certainly consider late in the first round. And in 2023, he only allowed 2 sacks. When you think about what this guy meant to that Duke Blue Devil team that took such a step forward, he's also a physical-type player. And when you think about the Dolphins as a team overall, nobody talks about the Dolphins as a team that plays with an edge. Graham Barton is a guy that plays with an edge. Here's his draft profile from Draft Network. He's a day one impact starter with consistent all-pro potential, big-time finisher. You love the big-time finishers. Exceptional physical ability, dominant run blocker, potentially and schematically versatile. Wins pass reps with conviction. The profile goes on to say Barton was a really easy prospect to fall in love with. He has a knack for overpowering opponents and displacing defenders with the help of some impressive physical traits. So when I hear that, I think that's a guy that's going to fit in well with the aqua and orange. And again, provide that edge, that physical punch that this Miami Dolphins team seemed to lack at times in 2023, especially down the stretch when they were playing teams that were a little bit better than them. Think of the Chiefs. think of the Bills, whatever, with the Ravens, the list goes on. This Dolphins team needs some mean road graders on the offensive line, and I think Graham Barton is one of those guys. Next up, Jordan Morgan out of Arizona. Big offensive tackle for the Wildcats, who also are coming off an outstanding season. He only allowed 2 sacks in 2023. And Jordan Morgan is 6'5", 325 pounds, and also has that long reach and athletic enough to be, again, a guy that makes an immediate impact on the offensive line for the Miami Dolphins. This is from Bleacher Report on what they had to say about Jordan Morgan, starting with good bulk and thickness. You love the bulk and thickness. Very strong hands and upper body strength. Good burst, ease of movement, and angles as a lead blocker and screens. We know Mike McDaniel loves those screen passes. Climbs and pulls to locate and seal off smaller targets. A 3-year starter at left tackle inside Arizona's balanced run pass split zone, based run schemes with 37 career starts. Morgan times the snap well in the run game with good initial quickness out of his stance, can function on an island. So important in the National Football League. Mediocre range leads him to opening his hips early, creating a soft inside shoulder and clean losses across his face. You don't want to lose across your face. Overall, Morgan has the frame, build, play, strength, and physicality to make a smooth transition inside to guard with the initial quickness and burst to be a high-quality run blocker. So again, it's a prospect that has a lot of versatility and somebody that you could plug and play depending on where the Dolphins' holes are, because there's still a question mark at left tackle with Teron Armstead. There's still the ongoing suspicion that he might even perhaps retire because of all the injuries, not to mention if he does give it a go in 2024, you can always count on him missing a couple of games because never once in Teron Armstead's career has he ever completed an entire season. All right, here's where we get a little bit greedy with prospects that I would love to see available at 21. Troy Fautanu out of Washington, a guard that's versatile enough to play multiple positions. He's also a part of that team that went to the national championship before losing to Michigan. Third-team All-American and a big body, 6'4", 317 pounds. I don't know if he'll still be available. I think the Combine will tell us a lot as well, how he performs at the NFL Combine. But if he's there, that's a guy I would love the Dolphins to secure at 21 because, again, just like these other offensive linemen that we've talked, he's a day one starter. Here's his draft profile from The Ringer. Fautanu is tall with a well-built, sturdy frame. He's a quick, light-footed mover who glides into his pass set effortlessly and mirrors skillfully. He forcefully punches. He keeps his feet moving. There are times when Fautanu struggles to sustain blocks all the way through. The whistle, Fautanu is tough and physical and has a versatile skill set. He has the quick feet and movement skills to play left tackle, but the temperament and strength to play at guard. So just as I mentioned, a number of different versatility options there. So of the 4 offensive linemen we've discussed, I want you to pick one because I think each one of these has their respective strengths and weaknesses. Each one of them represent, in my opinion, a day one starter for the Dolphins. But if it's Jackson Powers Johnson type JP, if it's Troy Fautanu type TF, Graham Barton out of Duke type GB, and Jordan Morgan out of Arizona type JM, either way, let your voice be heard. Now, here's where I'm at with it. If Fautanu falls, I think he's your guy. You take him if he falls all the way to 21. I don't necessarily think he's a guy you trade up for, but if he's available at 21, I would venture to say that's a best player available situation at a position of need, and sometimes you don't want to overthink the room. Now, second on that list for me, Jackson Powers Johnson. Love the name, love the versatility, played for a big-time program. Think he brings an element of toughness and grittiness to the Miami Dolphins that they could certainly need. Now, last but certainly not least, my number one target, the guy, Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma. And this is where the line between getting a little bit greedy, being realistic, because in all honesty and actuality, I don't think he's necessarily a guy that's going to be available at 21. And just the same statement with Fautanu, he's not necessarily worth trading up for, but he's one of the most athletically gifted, hard-nosed players in this draft. He's shown a lot of growth in just 2 years at Oklahoma, did not allow a sack in 2023, but there are some things he does need to work on, some consistency elements, but I think there's going to be a team in the top 20 that says Tyler Guyton is our guy, and for that reason, I still have him as my number one pick on the Dolphins big board, but with the expectation and the understanding that he might not be there at 21. But if he is, go ahead and grab him for the Miami Dolphins. He's a day one starter. Predict it. I want you to let me know your predictions in the comments. What's the percent chance Guyton is on the board at 21? I'm thinking it's less than 50, but I don't want to sway your opinion too much. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And if you haven't yet, what the hell are you waiting for? Subscribe and join Dolphins Today, and most importantly, become a part of the Noti gang. It's arguably the most prestigious gang to be a part of. All you have to do, hit that subscribe button, click that notification bell, and select all. 3 easy steps that will change your life for the better by becoming a part of the Noti gang on Dolphins Today.